Greetings and welcome to The Hidden Palace. This is the show where we talk with experts and enthusiasts about video game preservation. My name is Bo, and I write the reverse engineering blog Rings of Saturn, and I'm going to be your guide for this episode. But I'm not alone. I've got a panel of experts and enthusiasts from The Hidden Palace here with me, including DRX, the founder of The Hidden Palace. And I presume, DRX, that most people listening to the show, they know what The Hidden Palace is, but could you introduce how you think about the site? Like, how do you describe it to yourself? Like, what people don't get about the Hidden Palace that you want them to get about it?
Good question. What is Hidden Palace? I mean, what isn't Hidden Palace, I guess? Saz, what do you think?
What do I think Hidden Palace is? I would describe it as today I would describe it as a repository of, video game history, of video game development history. It started in 2006 when, you got your hands on, prototypes of different games and kind of developed a passion for the process of video game development. But I guess I would describe it as an obsession turned into a community.
Well said.
The voices you're hearing are Sazpaimon, Hidden Palace stalwart, and Nick, also joining the show for this first episode, this test episode. So Hidden Palace, repository of video game preservation, a community. You all have been there since the beginning, is that right? Obviously you, DRX.
Yeah, in some capacity, right? Like, I obviously started it. But Saz has been around for the majority of it. And Nick also in the background.
I suppose, when you say it like that, technically, Sazpaimon is the most tenured of us in terms of the Hidden Palace.
Yeah, and so did it start with Sonic for everybody? It started with Sonic for me. I was on the message boards. I was reading the Sonic Stuff research group way back in the very old days. I was looking at the photographs of the Simon Y Sonic 2 beta cart. Is that where it started for everyone?
For me, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Probably around 96, 95, 96, I went on the AOL message boards, as lots of people did back then, and found there was a lot of, chatter about, video games that I was into at the time, like Banjo-Kazooie, Sonic, and I just kind of gravitated towards Sonic. And there was a lot of discussion around things like cut content from the game. This was before the Sonic 2 beta, the Simon Y Sonic 2 beta had come out. So there was still a lot of discussion around that. And then I think the Sonic 2 beta got discovered probably around 97, 98.
I think it was 98.
That tracks, yeah.
And that kind of blew the scene wide open. And I didn't actually find out about it. I didn't actually find out about it until probably 99, 2000. Just because I was still on the AOL message boards and there just wasn't a lot of people talking about that. But eventually I did discover, Sonic Stuff research group, and that's where Simon Y's Sonic 2 beta page was hosted at the time. And it was definitely an eye-opening experience to me to find, a large group of people who were into the same thing as me. And that kind of, that experience kind of broadened and expanded across all different sorts of sites at the time. And here we are today.
Many, many years later. What about you, Nick? How did your interest in video game preservation and prototypes and such begin?
I'd say it was more through magazines, honestly, if I have to think back towards it. Nintendo Power, PlayStation Magazine, GamePro. You'd see something, and I grew up relatively poor, so magazines were the gateway in the window for me to see just these different worlds everyone made up with this new technology at the time. And there's just some things that I would see in a magazine that would not show up in a finished game. And I would just think back to to the magazine moments of, hey, what happened here? And then I would eventually just start reading, like, actually read the developer interviews, which, maybe were not so interesting to teens, like in the 1990s, I suppose, but they're creators. They're making stuff. Like, it's still art, even if it's produced a different way.
Yeah, all the way back to the magazines, and that I think is the origin of a lot of people's interest. I see the screenshot of Sonic in the desert zone. I see these things that didn't show up in the game. It's like when a clip from a movie is in the trailer but not in the actual film. You wonder what happened to that.
Did you ever hear the rumor from Sonic 2 that, like, I don't remember where I first heard this, but there was a rumor that went around back in like the late 90s that you could get to Hidden Palace if you had the first 100 copies of Sonic 2, make it to Death Egg with all the Chaos Emeralds, and then jump at Robotnik's face during the Silver Sonic fight, you'll get transported to Hidden Palace. I heard that about like a dozen times back in like the late 90s as like a rumor. And I tried it. It took me like 6 hours to do it back then, and it didn't work. And I was very sad.
Yeah, I love those playground rumors about cheat codes. Sonic 2 had a lot of those things with glitches you could activate. You could turn Sonic green and mess up the palette, and oh, that's Sonic's brother. It's Ashura.
I think the biggest thing, going back to what wasn't released, going back to the biggest thing for me was the Knuckles Chaotix cover, where if you turn to the back, you'll see a different looking Metal Sonic. And he's nowhere in the final game, though. That's like, for me, I think that might be the linchpin, like, that started it.
I am curious who's the first person to reach the Hidden Palace, because I presume if you are good with the Game Shark, you can make it happen. And did anybody do that by accident before they figured out how to do it in the beta?
Well, you actually can't, right? Because in the final version, it's just glitched out, right? It doesn't load anything except the music. The music loads, which is cool.
Okay, so these are the origins of the Hidden Palace, the actual Hidden Palace we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I was really into that level in particular. That's kind of why I think the site is called Hidden Palace, because it was only through a prototype version of Sonic 2 that we could actually play it, right? And it was kind of, for a lot of people, that beta of Sonic 2 is kind of the first interesting prototype they've played. And I think for a lot of us, it was kind of the feeling that we chased for a long time after, is that feeling of like, wow, we're playing a cut level, that we couldn't play in the retail game.
It was so unbelievable too. It's like, oh, not only is there the Hidden Palace, but there's a thing called Genocide City. Like, is that actually a thing? How can that be true? And it is true.
Yeah, I would say it's probably accurate to describe Hidden Palace as probably the most famous piece of cut content in video game media, probably by a long shot. Like, yeah. I can't even think of number two.
Definitely in Sega terms.
For Sega.
In Sega, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe my number two would be the White City in Mega Man X.
Yeah, there's also Dust Hill Zone, which is like a whole thing. The desert level, which is a whole debate.
We didn't really even get an answer to until, 2 years ago, when it was revealed through the artist that it was just a mock-up, right?
Yeah.
I think most people at the time that weren't like wish casting, like, accepted that it was a mock-up.
Right.
Yeah.
So I grew up in a place that had a lot of pirate carts of Sega games. My pirate card of Sonic and Knuckles had the Dust Hill. Well, I said Dust Hill. The desert level screenshot on the back. Yeah. So I always wondered what that was about, and it said something about like, this is Sonic 4 or something like that. And so for the longest time, I tried to find that ROM of Sonic 4, and that's probably what got me onto the internet, like trying to look for ROMs of stuff that I haven't seen. So yeah, it was really hard to find ROMs for everything, and not all ROMs worked in all emulators. Like one of the reasons I got into the Sonic 2 beta was, well, the Y beta, I guess, is because the retail version didn't work on the emulator that I liked. So I could only play the beta version if I wanted to play on my computer.
How many people do you think got into engineering by way of hacking Sonic? Like, it's a lot, right?
Oh,
At least 3.
yes.
Yeah. I taught myself 68K assembly to hack Sonic ROMs, and then I taught other people how to do it. And so I've had multiple people come up to me like 10 years later, 20 years later, saying like, that's how I got into software engineering. So now they're like senior staff software engineers, and they're like, this is how we got our start, which always amazes me, that this is kind of the butterfly effect of, we just kind of wanted to hack Sonic ROMs. And
in a way, you probably have some responsibility for Sonic Mania existing.
I can trace that butterfly effect, yeah.
Yeah, I guess Sonic ROM hacking is actually how I originally got into prototypes, because my interest was initially in just like figuring out how those games worked. So, we would just kind of like edit a bunch of bytes in the ROM and see what broke, right? And that's how we figured out like, oh, this is the level layout, this is the art, this is the code.
That's still how I do it. Turn this function off, see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, that works surprisingly well still. Yeah.
It's better now because you can do it like in real time.
Right. Yeah, with a debugger.
I think even before that, though, knowing the debug mode code for Sonic 2 was maybe the start of a lot of engineering careers, because it's like, oh man, I can change this game, and what are all these weird objects, and how does this work in the engine?
Not a lot of games that had that.
I spent hours and hours just messing with that.
Yeah, and I remember trying to figure out how to try to enable other kinds of cheats, right? Because once you get the taste of debug mode, like what else is there?
When did you start collecting prototypes in earnest?
Prototypes for me started actually with Saz. I don't know if you remember this, but back in 2004, we did a hoax of a Sonic X-Treme prototype. Do you remember that?
Do I remember that?
Yeah.
Yes. It made my life hell for like a week.
Yeah, me too.
The fallout from that.
So you purported to have this ROM available of Sonic X-Treme, and people fell for it. Is that the...
Yeah. And so we put up a torrent of this supposed prototype, and the way I did it is it was some dummy file that looked plausibly like a Sonic X-Treme ISO, and I purposely made it stop at like 93% or something, so that you couldn't actually finish the download. So a lot of the anger we got was people trying to download and not be able to. And I actually still, to this day, get emails from people who like try to download that torrent. Like, I kid you not. And it was fun. Like, I think Saz got like one of the developers to kind of vouch for the prototype too, so that gave it some credibility.
Yeah, so it was just at the time that like Sonic X-Treme Mania kind of like was taking off, because there was going to be like a video posted for like a build of Sonic X-Treme that hadn't been seen before, and it just happened to coincide with that hoax that DRX was going to release. So I was able to kind of get involved on that in there and post some screenshots from that video to kind of like add some legitimacy to it.
Yeah, good times. And so I think that's what got me into prototypes, because then I started thinking like, wow, there's a lot of people who care about this, just because of the reaction we got. But I just like went and tried to find like, hey, like what other ways or what other prototypes could we find of initially just Sonic. And so I actually went on like a big Usenet bender, where I think I literally searched for Sonic and searched for like prototypes and anything that I could think of on Usenet. One thing that I found was a Sonic Crackers sort of origin story. For the folks at home, Sonic Crackers is an early version of Knuckles Chaotix for the Sega 32X. And a build of it leaked for the Sega Mega Drive or Genesis. That is super early. It barely runs.
It stars Sonic and Tails, but it does have the ring band.
At that point, like there weren't really any references in official media to Sonic Crackers. So a lot of people assumed that it was a hoax. Like people thought that someone just made that as a joke. It was interesting to find the actual origin on Usenet of that prototype. So it turns out that someone at Sega had early access to the early build, and they burnt a bunch of copies of it on random dev cards.
And those EPROMs weren't blank either, right?
I think there were like 20 of those carts, or somewhere in that range. So imagine 20 legit prototypes being salvaged to make copies of Sonic Crackers.
Oh, so they overwrote whatever was on them with Sonic Crackers, aka Clackers, aka Knuckles Chaotix,
aka Sonic Studium.
Dude, I forgot about that.
It's funny that you mentioned Sonic Crackers as one of your early influences, because isn't that like one of your white whales today still? Like the Saturn version of Crackers?
Yeah, that whole thing.
Well, sign me up for the Kickstarter to fund that purchase.
I mean, amazingly, I think people think I spend a lot of money on prototypes, but honestly, most of the stuff I ever got was either like really cheap, or sometimes even I get stuff for free because.
Well, this is my goal. I want to become known as the premier Saturn hacker. So when somebody comes up with the Tokyo Game Show build of Burning Rangers, they send it to me.
Yeah, that's funny because that was kind of my dream for Hidden Palace when I started, in a way, right? Because I started getting all these prototypes, and I thought, okay, let's start putting them up on the internet. And while I was doing that, I think I stumbled upon a collector who had a Sonic 3D prototype, which that was pretty.
The Traveler's Tales one.
Yes. So for the Sega Genesis, and I think at the time that collector described it as an E3 prototype. So that sparked my interest.
Because that's spring, summer. The game comes out in the winter, fall, so it's got to be early.
Right. That's what we thought. And so, but that collector, would not give it up for free. So I actually had to fundraise for that one. And so I went to the Sonic community, and people were very happy to help. And which is funny because I was just a kid. I think I was 15 or something. And so I this is commonplace now, but back in the day, this is 2005, 2006, I think. Sending a kid cash by post to another country to fundraise for a ROM of Sonic the Hedgehog that was kind of a funny concept back in the day. So, a bunch of people kind of like mailed me cash, and I had to go and exchange that cash to my own local currency too. We were able to collect the money, and I received the card. It actually hit customs, so that was fun. Customs like held it, and I had to explain like, wait, why are you sending? Well, first of all, I had to explain why I am supposedly receiving a cartridge that's worth $700. So I had to like send a letter, and they put some import tax on it. So that was fun. And so I got this like big EEPROM cart. And EEPROM carts are funny because you can tell that it's a prototype, even if it's in a case. Like they're heavy because the EEPROMs are heavy. So that's like if you're at a garage sale or somewhere, estate sale, and you're like judging cartridges, pick them up. That's how you can tell. It's an inside tip for podcast listeners. So early days, actually, we didn't have easy ways to dump prototypes. So nowadays there's quite a few devices that you can use to, like, you can buy stuff online to dump cartridges, but back then I had to solder my own. My girlfriend at the time soldered me a ROM dumper, which didn't work because
first time.
Mm-hmm. And so then actually I used another method, which is there was this person in the community whose name was Mask of Destiny. Do you guys remember?
That sounds familiar.
MOD. Yes. It's been a while. It's a blast from the past, huh? So he coded up some Sega CD code that you could burn on a CD, and you could put it in a Sega Mega CD, which was an add-on to the Genesis, and you could solder a cable, put it in the joypad port, the controller port, and it would stream data from a cartridge into your parallel port. So that's how I dumped prototypes, initially.
That's amazing. As I said, like the number of engineers who started hacking on Sonic stuff.
Well, that's actually what got me not to pursue a career in hardware, because I sucked at soldering. I was terrible. Like my hands shake and all that. But it got me into software, which was cool. So I got it dumped, and it was cool. It was, it was like, it's a great feeling. It's like a build of a game that no one's played
since that trade show. Yeah.
But it's kind of debatable if it was the actual prototype that was at E3, because they kept that E3 badge for quite a while after the show. So it might not have been the actual build.
I think eventually we got a build date for it, right? It was like August.
Right. So we have, right. So E3 is what, in May?
Yeah.
Yeah, earlier.
All right. So it's probably not, so it's not the E3 build.
We don't ever have the E3 build. I think the earliest we have is like July.
Right.
So one day we might get the real E3 build of Sonic 3D Blast.
But yeah, that was really cool. And then that once you taste that.
Yeah, once you've taken a game out of the joypad port, like you need to do that again, of course.
Yeah. So I just kept going, and the rest is history. I eventually stumbled upon the prototype of Sonic 2 that kind of made the site famous, which is funny because, I named the site Hidden Palace, and then very soon after starting it, I found the prototype with Hidden Palace in it. And I found the prototype, and I remember that the owner actually didn't want to sell it at all. Because, even back then, Sonic was a pretty popular franchise. Like,
This was before the dark period.
yes, like, that's true. I mean, at that time, Sonic 2 was what, 14 years old? It's actually been more than it's
Yeah,
Hidden Palace is older now. The site is
that Sonic
older
2 was
now
then.
than
Yeah.
Sonic 2 was then, which is interesting. But yeah, the owner didn't want to part with the cart. And so I kept trying, and eventually I just as a Hail Mary, I just offered him a bunch of cash, which, by the way, I didn't have. Again, as a kid, in a post-Soviet country, and he accepted. And then I was like, "Oh shit! Like, I don't have that amount of money. Like, what do I do?" So I went and fundraised it again. Honestly, a lot like people were not enthused to invest in this fundraiser, which seems funny now, but back then I assumed that it would probably be the Y prototype or something similar, and I think we all did. It was either that or it was gonna be like the final version. So spending a bunch of money on that was not a very smart prospect, to be honest.
Yeah, the idea that like there was another prototype of Sonic 2 that even couldn't possibly exist just did not cross anybody's mind.
Like the most common outcome is this is a boring cart.
Yes. And so I actually got flamed quite a bit for trying to fundraise money for something that was kind of a waste of time and money.
Yeah, we have Sonic 2 beta at home.
Exactly. But fortunately, there were a few kind souls who contributed the money eventually. And I almost didn't get the prototype. So that's another podcast exclusive. Once I started fundraising for it, someone caught wind of the fundraiser and reverse engineered where I found it, and so they went to the person I was buying it from and said, that guy is fundraising for it. I have the cash right now. I'll pay you the money right now if I can keep it. Unfortunately, the guy who was selling it to me, he was kind enough to let me keep fundraising until I got it, because otherwise it would have gone to a guy. I eventually learned who that was, and that guy never releases stuff. So in all possibility, like, we would have never played that ROM, and the site would not have become popular, and I probably wouldn't be in prototypes right now.
The hinge point of history.
I know.
I have to explain this. I did explain this to a friend of mine a while back, which is, why care about old versions of the games? Like, aren't they just like worse versions? And I had to say, like, no. There's stuff that got cut. There's history of the development. He's like, oh, okay, I could see that.
It's no different than movie enthusiast or music enthusiast, where especially for movies where you have to be behind the scenes and all the prop collecting, which is a huge market itself.
And work prints.
Yes.
People love their work prints. People love their like studio recordings
love
of
the
albums.
Reels.
Yeah.
They can get those.
The demo reels.
Yeah, demo versions of songs, sure.
We were thinking this was the Y Proto or some final version, right? And then I receive it finally, and I put it in my Sega Genesis, and the Sonic 1 music starts playing. That was crazy. That was like a crazy feeling. I was on the IRC at the time, and I was kind of like live tweeting, live IRCing, and we were freaking out. And it took forever to dump a prototype using that method.
You're streaming the bits out and like giving the progress update.
Yeah. So it was a really fun event. I think I think for everyone, honestly, like that. I think it was like really fun for everyone to kind of experience that moment together as a community, and because previously we all kind of appeared into the scene, either like for some of us like me, like the previous Sonic 2 ROM was known, so it was already kind of out there. But with this, like everyone got to experience it for the first time at the same time, which was really cool. Like people were like finding differences and like different like little details for
Yeah, swapping
weeks.
screenshots. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's like the perfect build, because it simultaneously answers a lot of questions that were left unanswered from the Y prototype, but also presents an entirely new set of questions that we didn't get answers for many years later.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that Sonic 2 really is the story that keeps being told. Like, I would have never guessed we would get the design documents and the other stuff that Video Game History Foundation put out, what,
I don't think there's a
ago?
game where we have a more complete like picture of the development history of than Sonic 2. Maybe
Yeah.
Sonic X-Treme, but definitely like Sonic 2 is up there. And we still don't know everything.
All right, so I'm going to tell the story of the one prototype that I helped bring to light, and it happened to be for one of my favorite games, which is Burning Rangers on the Sega Saturn. And I don't know what this group here, what's your history with Burning Rangers? I'm sure you know it's made by Sonic Team. You probably know it's a Saturn game, but have you played it? Do you know what's about?
Yeah, I played it. Like it was I never actually owned the retail copy of it. I had Knights, like the retail copy of Knights, and I never actually heard of Burning Rangers because like it came out when like the Saturn in the US was kind of like on its way out. Thank you to Bernie Stolar for that. So I never really saw it on store shelves. I'm sure if I did, I probably could have gotten it for like $20 most because they were just trying to get rid of as much Saturn games as possible at that time.
Yeah, it was one of what 5 games that came out in the U.S. for Saturn that year. The limited release, not very many out. But so you mentioned Knights. It's made by Sonic Team, but it's not a Sonic game. It's their second outing away from Sonic. Knights is this mystical purple gesture, not a cool dude that's going to appeal to American teens. And then Burning Rangers is about firefighters who go and rescue people. And you can read in some of the development interviews, Naka talks about he wanted it to be a positive vision for the future where instead of shooting people, you save them. So you go in these burning buildings, you look for survivors in the fire, you teleport them to safety, and then you go on to the next place and look really cool while doing it. So that's Burning Rangers. It's kind of a weird zag from Sonic Team, who are like broken in half at the time. Half of them are making Sonic Adventure, and the group led by Oshima is working on Burning Rangers. But I had it in '98, and I loved it. And to me, it was like, oh, Sonic Team has a perfect track record here. It's, Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Knuckles. These are all great. Nights into Dreams, weird, but okay, I'm going with it. And Burning Rangers, I'm right there with you. Wherever you want to take me. If firefighter game, show me. We're not into Sonic Heroes or Sonic 06 or Sonic Unleashed yet. Everybody thinks Sonic Team is golden at this moment. But, I played it in '98 and then played it a little more after that and then kind of forgot about it for a long time. But then when I started paying attention to games again in the pandemic, a year inside, you're like, well, I wonder if my Sega Saturn still works. I started looking up Burning Rangers again, and I found Hidden Palace had a prototype version of the game from 2021. The build is from December of 1997, and it's got some really cool stuff in it, like the remnants of a 2-player co-op mode. And that was kind of a mind-blowing to me, because every Burning Rangers fan knew that the 2-player mode that got cut out was versus mode. There's a tiny little screenshot and a little blurb in Sega Saturn magazine UK about Burning Rangers, and they say, like, there's this 2-player mode in the game they sent us. It's kind of buggy. It's supposed to be like virtual on. We couldn't really do much with it, but maybe the next one will be better. And then the retail release comes out. It's nowhere to be found. And so I thought, oh, this prototype, it's got to have it. But no, it's got a different broken 2-player thing.
Yeah, I actually tried to get that working. I had the assumption that it worked with... I can't remember the name of the game. There was some Saturn game exclusive to Japan that had like a multiplayer mode that required a special adapter. And I actually ended up finding that adapter on eBay and trying it with 2 Saturns, and it didn't work. And I was really disappointed, because I was really hoping that was the way it would work.
Tyson Cable Burning Rangers, that would be awesome. Anyway, so I thought that build was super, super cool, and I started doing the thing that you mentioned, DRX, which is going on the Usenet, going on Google, just typing in Burning Rangers and prototype and beta. And one day I found a French Sega enthusiast wrote on his blog about a weekend in, I think, 2005, where his friend came over and they played a bunch of Saturn games, and they took digital photos of the games and they listed all the ones they played. And on that list was Burning Rangers, parentheses, beta. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. There's, before 2021, when Hidden Palace put it out, there was no Burning Rangers beta. And so I found him. I asked him, hey, do you remember doing this? I'm not crazy. I was reading your blog from when you were a teenager, but hey, do you have this game? And he said, yeah, do you want it? And he sent it to me. And so I booted up, and it's got the versus mode. It's a different prototype from the one that Hidden Palace put out in 2021. It is a little bit later. It is, I think it must have come from the same build that Sega Saturn Magazine UK had when they reviewed the versus mode, because it fits the description, and there's some like debugging information in the screenshots that matches. And so I was amazed. This was a jackpot for me. I'd remembered this from decades previous, and I was so excited, and I looked like, what do you do when you have a prototype? And the answer is send it to Hidden Palace. So I did. That's my experience with finding a prototype. But what I really love about this one is, in addition to the versus mode, which is you can play it for like 2 minutes and then you've experienced the entirety of it. But it's got the debug features like Sonic 2. You can hit the button, you can move the character around. You can't place objects, but Burning Rangers is this like game that has like these maze-like levels you go through, and you can go through all the doors. Like most of the time when you play, some of them are closed off, and so there's only a certain path you can go through. But now you can see like how huge the levels are, and it hit something for me of like that same experience we were talking about with Sonic 2 of like, I'm experiencing this game on a different level from what the normal thing is, and I really like it.
Just like Sonic 2, like these games, these prototypes were built not very far like before the actual retail build of the game. Like if you look at the development history of Sonic 2, of all of the builds we have, there's a lot of them that were built a week before they were supposed to ship the game. And they have a lot of differences between them. There's a lot of stuff that went in that last 2 weeks of development in Sonic 2. And you can also see that in the 2 Burning Rangers prototypes. Like the two we have are from the beginning of December and the beginning of January. The game was done January 27th, I think, like the end of January. there's so much that's not done in the early January build. It's a wonder that they actually got the game finished in time.
One amazing bit of luck is in the WAV files on the US retail release, there's garbage data from the memory of one of the developers who was constructing the files, and it's got internal bug tracking stuff from Sega's machines in it, and they're filing bug reports against Versus Mode as late as January 12th. So the game goes gold on the 27th. They cut the feature someday after January 12th entirely to clear out the bugs. And yeah, so it somehow comes together, but crunch time is...
But at what cost?
Crazy in every game, yeah. Oh, but that is a great point. Like, if you look at the... sort of even the late Sonic 3 builds, you're like, oh man, this is kind of janky. I don't know if they're going to make it. But somehow they pull it off every time. Except in Sonic 06.
So funny that you mentioned the bug databases, because I think I have a few Sega Saturn bug databases that I have not released yet. Let's just say that are waiting for their time, because they just have personal information, so I never release them out of that concern. But I think there's like a nice way to do it. I just need to make sure that there's no like personal emails and stuff like that. But yeah, I have quite a few Saturn like bug database. It's really interesting to go through them and like see the...
Are they in Japanese?
No. So these were from Sega of America. So
okay,
they're usually like localization prototypes.
Right. The Burning Rangers one has emails from Sega of America, and they're talking about how, we don't want to credit the voice cast for the localized version, because presumably they were non-union actors. And sure enough, in the retail game, they're not credited.
Oh.
How do you know when they actually started recording the English voiceover for Burning Rangers? Like how late in development?
Certainly before the Japanese release was done. And we know this because there are lines from cut aspects of the story. So there's some aspect of it that's not in either of the prototypes where the Burning Rangers combine their firefighting tools into one mega firefighting tool.
They cross the streams?
Yeah, they cross the streams. They do the Power Rangers thing. And that's not in the final game, but they do have two English lines that reference that.
Because it's not in any... The English lines are not in either of the two builds, so it had to have been like sometime after January 3rd.
The Japanese game has only Japanese dialogue in it, and the US game has only Japanese dialogue in it. There's a couple of demos, too, that are post-final, or one demo that's post-final that they cut out the dialogue to save space. I am interested in like the recording sessions for those, because the December 1st build has sort of a storyline that isn't in the actual game, but like you're playing the game, but something is happening on the intercom that doesn't match with what you're seeing. So they must have like done another pass at some point. The Japanese one, they had like famous anime actors. That was a big part of the marketing. And in the US one, they got the cheapest talent they could find.
That's actually like a common thing with like Sega now, like RGG Studio. They love to get like famous like A-list actors for the Yakuza Like a Dragon games. So I guess that's kind of like a trend that they kept going for that.
I would love to know like what the recording session was like. They should hand them a script and do these lines, or this is the firefighter game. Do they know what they were recording for?
Well, if it's anything like Sonic Adventure's recording sessions, that's basically it. Like they got a script of the lines basically in order of how they are in the game. Like not like in order of how they're like spoken in the actual dialogue. They're just given a script of lines and they just read them in order. So that if you ever wonder why the lines sound so stilted, that's why. Because they're not actually talking to each other in dialogue. They're just reading words off a sheet of paper, like disconnected from the rest of the from the rest of the other actors.
Yeah, probably the story with Shenmue too.
And they had to do it with Knuckles all over again because they replaced Knuckles' voice actor, like almost like partway through the development of Sonic Adventure. They had to replace Knuckles' voice actor for some reason, or they had to replace his lines.
That's the Burning Rangers connection, is the voice for lead in the Burning Rangers is Knuckles in Sonic Adventure. Michael McGarn.
It's very interesting how the concept first came up, though. It's like futuristic firefighting. It's not something that you see in games often, especially at that time. Although in the US at that time as well, maybe a few years before, you'd have Hollywood had their like little firefighting era. I guess I could say Backdraft, and there was a few other movies. They even had Backdraft the Ride at like Universal
Studios. Yep, I rode that. It was, you definitely felt the heat. You definitely feel the heat in that ride.
And it's like in general, firefighters aren't like these, not like they're in real life. They exist. They're doing the things that other people would consider heroic. And that's just a straight up fact that they're risking their lives to save someone else. And, it's kind of cool that Yuji Naka did want to have that added to his game. It's just the futuristic part is a little confusing, I guess.
Well, that's not the only confusing thing. Like if you actually get to like the last chapter, that's when the game just kind of like it goes off the rails for me.
It's a warning about the dangers of AI.
It's true. That's right.
Prescient. So actually, they reuse a Burning Rangers story in Sonic Adventure 2. So the thing that connects all the missions in Burning Rangers is there's this guy, his daughter, she has this fatal illness, and he sends her up to this space colony to be in suspended animation until a cure can be discovered. And then a long time passes, and then a cure is discovered. But the transmitter that's sending the message to the space colony, it triggers all these fires and it triggers all these robots to go crazy and cause this destruction. And Maria in Sonic Adventure 2 is kind of the same thing. She has this fatal illness. She's in the space colony and bad things happen. They're like, nobody played Burning Rangers, so we can just reuse that.
It is pretty interesting though. Like, I know like it would be considered one of their smaller games, but it clearly had the ideas that they cared about enough to take it to another game and clearly make money off of it, for lack of a better word.
There's a interview with Mitsuyoshi, one of the developers on the game, who went on to be the lead for Phantasy Star Online, where he said, okay, everything we learned about what not to do in Burning Rangers informed what we did in Phantasy Star Online. So they're like, that's why there's no jumping in Phantasy Star Online, is we had so much trouble getting that to work well in Burning Rangers.
It's all those growing pains.
Let's see. So a couple more of my favorite things from this build is the concept of Burning Rangers is you're going in and you're rescuing people. And as an Easter egg, you can rescue members of the development staff. So if you look in Mission 3, you can find Yuji Naka and Naoto Oshima and other members of the development staff. And in Mission 2, you can rescue Knight's characters, Elliot and Claris, from Sonic Team's previous game, Nights into Dreams. And in this January 3 build, you can run into Knights and Claris too, but they're the wrong models. The final game has the actual models from the Knights game, but the January 3 build has these like store brand knockoff ones. It's a guy that sort of looks like Elliot and a girl that sort of looks like Claris, but you're like, I don't think these are the real ones.
Were they trying to like match them with the art style of Burning Rangers, of Knights?
It looks like to me that they just had like some building blocks for the survivors, and they tried to make like the closest thing they could.
It's the little things that make games. That's cute, It's like, it is like the developer putting themselves in the game. It's funny, it's cool, it's cute, it brings emotion. It's the developer themselves showing up. Hey, thank you for playing my game. Here I am. Do whatever you want with me. essentially.
It's even better in Burning Rangers though, because like after you rescue the development staff, whenever you rescue someone in Burning Rangers, they actually write you a letter and you can read all of the letters from the people that you rescue in the main menu. And when you rescue the development staff, they write you letters too, and they're basically personally thanking you for playing the game and leaving little like notes about like how they enjoyed developing the game and how appreciative they are of you like playing it. It's very cute. It's a very nice addition to the game that you did like back in like the late 90s. You didn't really see as much.
It was considered a treat to see the development, like just to see anyone associated to the game in the game itself.
Right.
Like especially on a realistic level. I forget which release it was, but it was one of the original 3 Mortal Kombat games where you could see a really nice portrait of the development team after the credits, I believe. It's really nice. And it's just those things that make fans for years.
Yeah, it adds a personal connection to the developers themselves and makes them fans of their work for the future.
Yeah, that was about the time when some developers started doing that. I remember, I think Duke Nukem had like a secret level with like the faces of the devs, and I think Quake 2 maybe did this as well. So it was definitely becoming a kind of trend. And I kind of miss it, like when games were zany for a while, like not hyper realistic and also taking themselves more seriously.
And it's also just like a really interesting like marketing catchphrase to say like, hey, it's the creators of Sonic the Hedgehog making this really interesting firefighting game set in a futuristic setting. Like, you guys want to play it? Like, come on. It's just that type of stuff that it's a whole little like cycle and chain that just connects everyone to the
also franchises. By the way, like it's so cool that people used to take more chances with gameplay, right? Like it's almost like indie games nowadays, right? Where people kind of come up with different kinds of gameplay or different tropes instead of just kind of making the same game over and over again, right? Like it would be kind of hard to get funding for a AAA game about firefighting nowadays, especially futuristic firefighting, right?
Imagine the conversation in Sega, which is, okay, they're done with Knights. Are they ready to make a Sonic game yet? And they're like, no. Let me tell you, firefighters.
Well, I'm sure Sonic Team Japan or Sega Japan would be like, well, we can say no to this, but Yuji Naka's just going to threaten to quit again. So I don't know if we want to deal with that.
Just trust him. Don't trust him on any financial tips, but
and don't trust him to make a one-button game.
Anybody who's got a Shot 2048 prototype, send it over.
I want a Balan Wonderworld prototype.
Are you you mentioned Shenmue? Are you a fan?
Oh yeah, Shenmue.
What would you do for a Saturn build of Shenmue?
Look, I've got 2 sons. One of them I could sell, and I'd still have one. So, joking, children.
Have you picked your favorites yet?
No, Saturn Shenmue. It's hard to even think about, like, if that were to come out, because it would be such a monumental thing.
Do we know if it even had a playable version? Because all footage of it just seems to be like pre-canned animations and like static camera pans. So I don't even know if they even got to the point of having controls in the game.
That sounds very similar to what happened with Final Fantasy VI, which was going to be turned into 7 on Nintendo 64, where it was just the pre-rendered cutscenes. And
well, in the case of Shenmue on Saturn, it was that was actually being rendered in engine on the Saturn, which was I mean, even for just pre-canned like animations and pre like baked camera movements was still impressive because they were hitting like 20, 30 FPS pretty well for such an early build. So if it came out on Saturn, if they actually got the chance to finish it, it would have probably been the killer app for Saturn. I just don't think Yu Suzuki could have ever gotten it across the finish line in time.
Right. Yeah.
So it could have been, a demo or something, but that's where Bo comes in. Like Bo could make it playable, I bet.
Yeah, I love to make an auto demo playable. Speaking of which, there's a demo of Burning Rangers from, I think, December 20th. It was on a demo disc, and it's the whole thing. They put the entire build of the game in there just to do the auto demos for the Japanese demo disc, and flip a bit and you can play it. It's the whole thing.
Just like the Sonic Adventure auto demo.
Yeah.
That's another one that I passed on because I thought, oh, it's just an auto demo. And then someone actually ended up getting it, and, lo and behold, turns out to be such an
super
important
cool. Yeah.
build. But that's actually one of the things that people are starting to add more and more on the wiki is demos of games, which I think is probably a huge untapped source of content that we could do for the future, right? It's how many demos
I've got a few dozen. Few dozen
it was
Saturn
something that
patches.
like I kind of poo-pooed on initially because it's like, oh, they're demos. They're like things you can already like get. Like they're already publicly available, like mass distributed. But like I never really considered that like sometimes in game development you can't just turn off like 90% of the game just to produce the demo. Sometimes you just have to just add a little code to say like at this point stop the gameplay. And it's just as simple as just removing that code and you have the full game.
Yeah, if you can show a cutscene, you've got the game engine, and that's a lot right there. All right, so hopefully you've enjoyed my enthusiasm about Burning Rangers and the January 3 prototype. You can look at pictures of it on the Hidden Palace and play it on the Hidden Palace. And if you've got a friend who you don't really like very much, you can play versus mode with them for a couple of minutes before you get bored. But know that it was a really big deal in 1998. Thank you for listening to The Hidden Palace. This is the show where we talk with experts and enthusiasts about video game preservation. Tell your friends if you like this. Tell us what you want us to talk about. What's your favorite prototype release? What is your favorite thing that hasn't been discovered yet, but you think is still out there? Let us know. Maybe we'll talk about it. And maybe we'll be back. Thanks to the group here. See you next time.